everyone, it's Sharana from Para Waiting. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Apple TV Plus series, Defending Jacob, episode 1, the pilot episode. For those of you who don't know, this series is actually based on the 2012 novel titled Defending Jacob, which was written by William Landy. And this series really centers around a father dealing with the accusation that his son is a murderer. So in this series, we have Chris Evans, who plays Andy Barber. He is an assistant district attorney. We find out very quickly that something's not going right in Andrew Barber's life. We don't know what it is, but I like how they kind of entered into the first episode. We see the back of his head. We see that he's dreading to go to wherever he's going. He's going through security. He's seeing people taking pictures of him, staring at him, whispering behind his back. So we know that some type of scandal has occurred, but we don't really know what it is yet. And so we see that he is being interviewed by Neil, who is played by Pablo Schreiber. And essentially, he's asking him questions about what his former job was. He asks him what his current job is, but he says that he's a former district attorney. And then he goes into, who the Barber family was. They're your typical average family. Nothing really out of the ordinary happening with them. But we know that he's testifying in order to see if this case will go to trial. And so therefore, we go back 10 months earlier where Andy is just being a normal dad. And I would have to say for Chris Evans in this episode, it was very nice actually seeing him play a father for the first time on the screen. I thought it looked very natural for him. And I thought that it was super cute when he's playing the rock music to get his son Jacob up out of bed. I was just like, you know what, Chris, for someone who doesn't have kids and who has never played a father, I was like, you are very convincing. I thought he did a very great job. But we see that we kind of get a little bit of insight into who Andy is as an attorney. He's like, no nonsense, don't take no stuff. He knows exactly what he's doing. I found it very interesting when we're introduced to the court case that he has at the beginning of the episode, where the defense is basically saying, hey, we can't track down this witness. Can we get a continuance? And he was like, oh, excuse me, hold on, wait a minute. Because I thought you might say that. And I decided to hire my own private investigator. And guess what? We found them in less than 24 hours. So I think you need to think again about whether or not you need a continuance. And so I love that this really showcases that he knows what he's doing. He's very smart at what he does. But also, too, I love the sass that he was given, and also to the reaction of the attorney, of the judge, in the court as well. I thought that was I just like, look at all this shade that he's throwing right now. It's like, I'm totally here for this, Andy. I see you. You better tell them, don't take none from nobody. So we also get a little glimpse into the family life at home. We see that he has a wife by the name of Lori, who's played by Michelle Dockery. We don't get to learn that much about Lori. We kind of see her at work. However, that's cut short as we kind of find out when we see Andy get a phone call about a young boy by the name of Benjamin Rifkin, who has been stabbed in the chest 3 times. He was found murdered in the park. And this really sets the town into a panic as they're trying to figure out who will actually murder a young boy like this in our town. And so we're introduced to Jacob. He's a very smart kid. We see his mom quizzing him. He kind of knows it all, really has everything going together. You'd be like, okay, he's a smart kid. Like, he's studying for his test. Like, didn't nobody have to make him do anything? I was like, all right, Jacob, I don't know how you murdered someone, but I guess we're going to find out. But we see after he gets the call, he goes to the scene. And later in the episode, we do get to learn a little bit more into Andy Barber's personal life in regards to he has an estranged relationship with his father. We see his wife kind of ask some questions as we see if he ever wants to reach out to his dad. But he always says that his mother said that he was a bad person, so he never really thought about it. But we also see that he's still having nightmares, but we really don't get to see what took place, if it's real, if it's just a figment of his imagination. We don't necessarily know. But the core of this episode really introduces us into the murder investigation, into kind of the suspects that we have so far. And so we see that as everyone's finding out, we see that Lori's in a work meeting when she gets the notification. It comes up in the meeting that the school is on lockdown. And we see that Jacob, who's played by Jaden Martell, he calls his father to ask what's going on, what's happening. He knows that if anyone knows what's going on, it will be his father. But he tells him, don't worry about it. We'll talk about later when I get home. Everything's okay. You're going to be okay. But we see this first hint of maybe there's something more to the story as to what Jacob knows, as Jacob kind of seems like he wants to ask his father a question. However, he kind of just changes the subject and just says, I'll see you when I get home. So we see that they're kind of going through this investigation. We know this young boy has been murdered. Everyone's kind of on edge. The town's on edge. The media is on their cases as to what is happening. And we see kind of our first conflict as we see with Neil, Pablo Schreiber, who's introduced at the beginning of the episode, as he's going to their boss. I believe, what was her name? Her name was Lynn, played by Sakina Joffrey, who I absolutely love. We see that Neil brings up that there's a conflict of interest for Andy, because Andy is the father of his son who goes to the school, who knows the boy. They weren't close friends, but he says this is a conflict of interest. Clearly, he's just trying to get him off of this case. But when my man called him Rasputin and called him Judas, I was like, sir, was this necessary? I got a cackle out of it. I love the shade that Andy is giving me so far in this first episode. But we see that Lynn ends up siding with Andy. She's confident that he can get the job done, but he also knows the pressures that the media is on her back, her boss is on her back, trying to make sure that they handle this case as good as possible. And so we kind of see that they go into this interrogation of first interviewing the kids at school. And I was very excited to see Betty Gabriel, who plays Lieutenant Duffy. And I thought it was very interesting as they're interviewing these kids and they're giving them these like one-sided answers, like not really giving them anything, but this reoccurring question like, hey, are you Jacob's dad? And I was like, yeah, but that's not the point. Yes, but no. And so we finally get in contact with a young lady by the name of Sarah, where she seems that she wants to tell them something, but she's not. She asks about the anonymous tip line, if she can call and kind of give information like that. And then she asks Andy, like, have you talked to your son? And so this is like the second inclination that there's something more serious going on and that Jacob may have a connection to Benjamin's death. And so at this point, it's a bus with the kids. No one's telling them anything. They're like, I think the kids know more than what they're actually saying to us. But right now, we don't have any more information that we can go off of to really help us figure out where we're going in the right direction. There's a tip that Lieutenant Duffy gets that she tells Andy about, where there's someone who was almost a registered sex offender, but somehow through a loophole, he kind of got off. So they think that he could be the number one suspect so far, but they don't know if they necessarily want to pursue that avenue. And so we see when we get towards the middle of the episode, when Andy and his family, they decide to go to the Shiva that is happening for Benjamin, where we see that as soon as he walks in, everyone stares at him. They're asking him questions, what's happening with the case. And he was just like, yeah, like, I'm here for the funeral. I'm not here to answer questions for you guys. He goes to try to find his wife. She's being interrogated as well. And he was like, you know what, y'all? Let me protect my peace. I shouldn't be here. And I was like, yeah, like if you're investigating this, I'm sure you knew that everyone's about to ask you 15 million questions. So I don't know why. I mean, I guess this really shows the conflict of interest that Neil was talking about, because he wants to be supportive, you know, to his wife who knows the parents, but also to his son. But he was like, look, I got to go. He tells his wife, like, honey, are you staying? Because I'm finna leave. And so he goes to get Jacob. But as he's going to find Jacob's coat, he runs into Benjamin's dad, who wants to talk to him. And he kind of asks him this question, like, you know, how far would you go for your son? And he was like, I would do anything for him, which kind of foreshadows the fact of him doing anything to protect Jacob as he becomes a suspect at the end of the episode. And so we see them have this conversation, and he ends up getting Jacob. They have this, they kind of hang out with one another. And I was like, sir, when Jacob was trying to tell him this joke, I was like, so we just gonna let him keep telling this joke? Is highly inappropriate. But then I was like, you got me. Okay, you got me at the end of the joke. Because I was like, I was scared for a moment, like, who gonna let their son get this far into this joke like this? I was just like, sir, I don't understand. But I was like, I'm glad that you were getting us. I guess that was the whole purpose of the joke, to make me feel uncomfortable, like you're going to say something, but you're not. But one of the most impactful things that happened in the episode was towards the end of the episode, we see that Jacob, actually, you know what? I missed something, y'all. Let me go back. Let's rewind back real quick, because I got to talk about Jacob's raggedy little friend. I think his name is Derek. So the raggedy little friend that he was playing video games with the night that they figured out what happened, you know, he leaves. They kind of have a conversation with Jacob, trying to ask him, like, is he okay? Jacob, like, I'm good. Like, I didn't know him like that. Why everybody being fake in the first place? And I was just like, Jacob, chill. That's not how you should really be reacting. But you got a little point. But I was just like, you got to chill with all of that. You can't be saying that to anybody. But we see that when Sarah's leaving the interview with Lieutenant Duffy and also too with Andy Barber, we see that Derek roll up on her like, she's like, you following me? And he was like, what did you say? You didn't tell him the truth, did you? And I was like, Derek, tell me, spill the tea. Tell us what the truth is. Because his little raggedy friend the next day after you sitting up in my house playing video games with me, he gonna sit with me. With Jacob, you gonna sit up there and ignore him when he gets to school, which is another hint that there's something deeper at bay that is happening that the kids aren't telling anyone. And so all of this kind of comes to a head when we see that Andy is kind of doing more investigation, more work on the case, and he gets this anonymous email. And it goes to like a little social media thread where, you know, Jacob is telling them like, you guys are being fake. You acting like you were best friends with this person when you guys don't even care about him. And then Derek was like, we know what you did. We know that you did it. You have the knife. And I was like, hold up, Derek, what knife? I'm looking shook. Andy looking shook. I'm sure everybody else watching looking shook. And then all of a sudden he goes into his son's bedroom. And I think that this is one of my favorite scenes with Chris in the episode, just due to his acting just with his face without saying any words. He kind of walks into his son's room. He tries to search for the knife. Can't find the knife. And he was just like, you can see the facial expression as he stares back at his son like, whew, like, you know what? They had me for a moment, like talking about that he has a knife. But then he was just like, you know what? Not my son. My son would never. But then he has the moment creeps back on him and he was just like, let me look one more time. And so to see his facial expression as he reaches back into his drawer and he finds the knife, which is hidden in the sock, and you see his face turn to complete horror as you're realizing that your son may be guilty. I thought it was just absolutely fantastic, brilliant acting on Chris Evans' part. But then I was like, Jacob, what did you do? And why do you have this knife in your sock drawer? Like, wasn't nobody gonna find it if your daddy found it that like easily? And how are you asleep the whole time while he in your room? Because I definitely would have woke up as soon as somebody opened my door. But then the episode basically goes off, and now we have so many questions because I'm just like, and we also see that he decides to bring the other potential suspect that Lieutenant Duffy was talking about earlier in the episode. But I'm just like, Jacob, what did you do? I don't know what's happening, but I got to find out more answers. But overall for me, I think that this episode, it was okay for a pilot episode. I think that it's a little slow, but I mean, that's typically what it is. They're really introducing us to the characters, laying the groundwork for what we should expect with this murder mystery for the rest of the season. But I'm interested to get to learn more about all of these characters, especially with Jaden Martell's performance as Jacob Barber. I really want to see, because I think he's a very great young actor, and I can't wait to see what he continues to do with the roles that he's choosing. But I can't wait to see all of this spiral out of control for him, to also see how something like this of looking at the child that you love and you think the best of your children, after finding that knife, how Andy is going to deal with the fact that his son may be a murderer. But I will say it does have me interested to continue watching the next couple of episodes. But those are pretty much my thoughts on Defending Jacob, episode 1, the pilot episode. As always, my name is Sharona from Para Waits, and if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this video with your friends, and make sure you hit the notification bell. And I love you guys 3000. I'll see you soon.